Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Talk Openly. My apologies for rushing in late for those who are joining us on YouTube. It's been one of those days, just not very conscious of the time. So happens. Um, my name's Jac. I'm here with my excellent friend Daniel.
Hi,
Daniel, it's so good to
Jack.
see you.
It's good to see you too.
It was
And
really nice to see you in person this weekend.
I know. It was wonderful. We were at a nice retreat together with our Sangha, and it was really wonderful to see you and get to hang out with all of our friends and learn uh, learn a lot more about Mahamudra and meditation and all that good jazz.
Yeah. Yeah. We also got to meet some listeners, which is so cool.
I was gonna say that was one of my favorite things. So
It's so fun.
if you're one of our listeners who came and talked to us at the retreat, you really made our day.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, it's nice to know that we're not kind of just screaming into a vacuum. That's
Right.
helpful.
It is nice. Yeah, a little
Yeah,
feedback is good every now and then.
right. Well, speaking of screaming into vacuums, we are gonna we're gonna be talking about political anxiety tonight. And it's I would imagine that most of us are feeling that. And so it felt like a good time to talk about that and speak from a Buddhist perspective um, and trying to find kind of a middle way between despair and apathy, and on the other end, complete rage that just destroys you from the inside out. So I think that's pretty good to talk about.
I think so. I think so. I veer towards the apathy, I think, and perhaps you go the other way.
Yes, right. We're always, yeah, these kind of yin yang opposites.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the discussion. It couldn't be more relevant.
Yeah,
It seems like it's the political anxiety is at sort of an all-time high right now for a lot of people.
yeah, for sure. Well, we'll dig into it, and I'm sure speak from some personal experience, and yeah, we'll let Dharma kind of guide us and our
Hmm.
yeah, that energy tonight. So good.
Yeah,
Um,
Dharma, take the wheel.
yeah, that was good. That was good.
You like that?
I love that. Daniel, tell me how you doing. What's going on for you this week?
Oh yeah. The retreat, it was the highlight for me.
Yeah.
Um it was really wonderful to be able to I got to stay in camp at the retreat, which was really nice because I never left the sort of magical zone. Like in previous retreats, I've left, like gone home in the evening and then come back the next day, and it sort of gets it's a little disjointed,
Mm,
and there's this sort of like coming and going. Whereas with this retreat, because I stayed there, I really got to be immersed in the experience, and it felt quite magical. And
mm,
I'd say there's a little bit of a rebound actually from it. Coming back into ordinary reality and kind of, like the non-retreat world.
mm.
And I don't know, like it's all right, it's fine, but I kind of want to go back for a longer retreat.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like we are just getting started, just skimming the surface.
That's how
Even
it
though,
felt,
our
yeah.
teacher goes incredibly deep, right? But for
Mhm.
myself, it's like, wow, I could, I mean, these teachings are just so potent that I know I could spend lifetimes on it, right?
Truly.
That's what we are doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really also want to do longer retreats sometime. Do you have
Truly,
a plan?
truly. And one thing that I thought was kind of interesting too was that the context of the retreat allowed me to, I really got this sense where I was like, yeah, oh, I see, I'm applying right now the teachings and it's
Mm.
working and I'm seeing, like, I kind of get it, right? And then first thing, Monday morning, I'm like, all right, like let's go. And I'm meditating and nope, I'm sort of like, back
Right?
to sort of my usual grind and meditation, getting
Yeah.
distracted and kind of veering off into like dreamland and stuff, so it was super special to have that little break and that experience. But there's, and of course I'm bringing something out of the entire experience. I've learned a lot and I'll be applying it. Just having 1 or 2 days is not enough, to see any kind of results or significant changes. But I know that the what I learned was profound. I wish I had been able to take in all of it, right, and be able to apply all of it. But what I did learn and what I am able to apply, I'm super grateful for. And
Yeah.
I even noticed it there at the event, or at the retreat. There was there's this sort of interesting thing at each retreat that I've been to where I have sort of this moment of like, the hell am I doing here?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like I'm just like, what? Why am I here doing this? And so I've had it be pretty pronounced in times past.
Yeah.
This time though, it crept up on me. I was having a great time. Everything is hunky dory, and I was like, oh yeah, this is groovy. And then it was like on the last day, I was tired and whatever. And I sort of just like all of a sudden I kind of found myself being like, whoa, dude, like why are you doing this? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then what was really neat about it in sort of true Lama fashion, he then answered that question.
Hmm.
Or at least helped me to look at it in a way that was really helpful when he was talking about dealing with doubts, right?
Yeah.
And that was exactly what had shown up. And I thought it was really neat because it was super encouraging the way that he was talking about it, right? And I was able to then immediately, like he talked about it, and then we went into a meditation, and I was able to bring exactly what I was experiencing right then in that moment, right in front of me,
Mm.
look at it
Hmm.
and watch it dissolve.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Right.
that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting, and kind of like the time warp of retreat, I think is pretty cool. Right. And um something that's been helpful for me, like coming back into, everyday life after retreat, is something that Lama told me a while back, that, just to treat every day like you're on retreat,
Mm.
no matter what you're doing. So, wake up Monday morning, it's retreat. Everything that I do during the day is retreat, is meditation. And so I try and keep that in mind. That definitely slips from my awareness most of the
That's
time, but
that's really good advice, but
yeah.
I cannot quite take it entirely. And here I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
So I remember at the previous retreat, Lama had mentioned, he said, a lot of people sort of view retreats as sort of like a break from the norm, and it's kind of like a mini vacation. But actually, traditionally, it's increasing the effort that you're putting into your practice. So you
Yeah.
actually are maintaining your regular daily practice on top of the retreat. Then you're also doing the retreat, right?
Right.
And so that was my intention going in. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be reading and I'm going to be meditating while I'm there, right? And
Yeah.
I really wanted to do that. I no joke. I was like, yes, this is it. And then that did not happen
I know. Yeah,
at
same here.
all. Not at all. So that's the only aspect of the advice about treating every day as being a retreat that I can't take because I really do need my daily practice.
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. I was curious, do you have any plans to do a longer retreat at some point in your life, like a month
Oh
or a
my God, I
week?
don't have plans. I have aspirations though,
Yeah.
for sure. I'm not, I know, some people are sort of like retreat bums, right? Like
Hmm.
they just go retreat after retreat after retreat after retreat, which I'm sort of jealous of.
Hmm.
But I don't know that experience. The only retreats I've been on are these retreats with our Sangha. So I actually don't know of any other kind. I've never done anything else.
Yeah.
And so I really want to have a few real retreats. I want to try some of the silent retreats, some of the very long retreats.
Hmm.
I want to do it all,
Hmm.
actually. Yeah. Life's
Yeah.
a little bit busy right now. I got a lot of responsibilities with kids and family and whatever, all that stuff. So
Right.
it's really hard to carve out like a big chunk of time. But I really want to. My
Yeah.
kids are getting older, so I'm getting closer.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What about
Cool.
you?
Yeah, I would really like to do a long retreat sometime.
What do you mean by long?
It's a good question. I mean, thinking about like my work, if I weren't to go into private practice, I would have to like work 20 years, right, in order to get like a sabbatical of like a
Mhm.
month, which is kind of crazy. So I don't want to wait that long. I prefer not to wait that long. Um, so yeah, we'll see. You know, I'm considering what it would be like to do private practice, or maybe like in between, you know, moving from one clinic to a new job, maybe taking off time, like a month or two, to do retreat. So yeah, I would love to just really get into shamatha, and you know, I feel um it's just so essential. And shamatha and study.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my intention. That's it's also an aspiration of mine, but no current plans.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And also I would love to go to Geshe Sewang's
Yeah, me
dates,
too.
right?
I'm going to. That's actually going to happen. I don't
Yeah.
have it's I don't have the plane tickets yet, but that's going to happen. There's no way I'm not going to leave this earth until I get to do that.
We're going together, right?
That's right.
I think that'd be really cool. That'd be
Mhm.
really cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna make that happen, Jack. And we're gonna
Yeah.
do the talk show from there,
That'd be so fun.
right? Coming
Yeah.
to you live from the Himalayas.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, good. Yeah. So how was you mentioned like your training since coming back has been kind of, or at least your shamatha meditation a little bit off the rails, or just
No,
no?
no, no. I wouldn't say that. No, just not off the rails. Just more sort of the way that I'm used to it in the sense that so my biggest problem is I have very dreamy sort of distractions, right? Like it's sort of on the I don't know what you want to call it. I actually I don't know where it is on the spectrum. A lot of times it's associated with lethargy, right? Or sort of this sort of depression or whatever you want to call it. But it's not really my experience. I think it's more along the lines of like some kind of entertainment or something. I
Yeah.
really don't know what's going on there. I can, I'm working with it, but it's just the normal sort of Daniel mind, uh,
Yeah.
right? And so I was just kind of hoping for the great clarity that I experienced while meditating in the retreat. Like it was very calm, very clear, very open. I did not struggle with that dreaminess. I didn't have those same issues in retreat. And I was kind of hoping, I was like, yeah, all right. And then I come, I'm like Monday morning and I'm like, oh, it's just same old shit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you struggle a little bit. Like our struggles are similar in that it sounds like there's a blend, right, of both laxity and
Yeah.
excitement. Whereas mine is more prominently excitement. Maybe yours is more prominently lethargy. But yeah, I noticed that there's a tinge of like laziness to it, right? When I'm,
Yeah.
you know, kind of drifting off into thought. And I can kind of just slip into this mode of like, I'm just daydreaming. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's definitely
That's
like a
truly what's happening. And it's daydreaming. It's not any type of like when I catch the thoughts, when I look at them, there's really like it's so dreamlike. In fact, thanks to you, I've been paying a lot of attention to my dreams.
yeah,
And one of the things, so I have all these dream journal, where I'm writing down whatever I'm experiencing. And it's interesting to me the similarity between my normal waking mind, like what it's doing, right? And what's happening in the dreams. There's not really any difference between the two of them. Like there's just this endless flow of nonsense,
yeah,
right? And I try kind of, like it gets pieced together and it sometimes has themes and, I can sort of weave a little story or something out of them, but there's just fragments of thoughts that are sort of bubbling up from the ether,
yeah.
And
Isn't that
when
interesting?
what's that?
The similarity of those minds, the waking mind and the dreaming
I
mind.
don't see there's really when I look at what's happening with my thoughts when I'm in meditation, it is surprisingly similar to dreams. In fact, I don't know that I can tell much of a difference between the
Mm, they're really shifty.
super shifty, not very concrete, and so the way that my thoughts are is also, it's interesting when I do like visualizations, the same type of the lack of stability it's incredible, right?
Mm,
So I can't maintain like a stable visualization. It is flickering, moving, changing. It's growing smaller, larger. Like there's a lot of movement up there, and getting it to actually stabilize is incredibly difficult.
yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, but hey, we're moving towards it.
That's all right.
Working on it.
I love it. I love the practices, and
Yeah,
meditation is just part of it. I really feel like, the one area where I see significant gains is in the other forms of mind training, and the
yeah,
mindfulness that it comes with meditation practice has benefited, that aspect of it too, in terms of watching, being able to see and watch what's happening in my mind throughout the day.
right.
Um, and I think that that's a big part of the goal, and that part's definitely working. So something's happening.
Yeah,
Struggle is still this sort
absolutely.
of similar, but something's changing for the better, I think.
Yeah, sure is. I
Yeah,
can see
yeah.
it.
But I that man, I'm sick of. I don't want to talk about me. I want to hear more about you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm definitely jet lagged. I'm like still I'm realizing like my age, and I'm not that old, but like I can tell like I'm in my mid 30s now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like on the upper side of my 30s,
yeah.
36. And I can
Not
tell
quite geriatric.
not quite geriatric, right, correct. Um but I can tell like my body is just it doesn't recover as quickly. And so I had these flights in and out of Sacramento that were just not very well timed. And so I still feel very tired. But a great experience. Really love being close with Sangha. That is definitely one difficulty that I face living up here in Washington is that I don't have close access to Sangha. But that's changing in that I'm choosing to actually kind of attend and get to know people in this community that I live in now who are practicing Dharma. And so that's feeling positive. Um, I think I told you, did I tell you about this? I went to a just a small monastic community. There's two of them with one layperson who's also in retreat. And yeah, it gave us time to a long meditation and then a conversation together. And that was just really nice. So I'll be going back there this Sunday.
Yay!
Yeah, finding Dharma, finding connection communities. Yeah, really important right now.
Yeah.
Really important. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
don't know how you do it. The
yeah,
the support of having, physical proximity to Sangha and community friends that are practicing Dharma, like it's so important.
mhm,
Like I don't know, I don't know how you do it, honestly. I know you have a close connection with our teacher, and I
mhm.
know you practice, regularly, but I just the Sangha part of it, that's got to be so hard.
Yeah, it has been really challenging. But I think Lama asked me to do this show for a reason.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
and so he kept me in, right? And coming out of that time in COVID when we were doing a Wednesday night meditation online, and then that closed, I think he just kind of swooped me right in to
yeah.
this. So um, I'm really grateful for that. Uh,
Same, same.
yeah,
I mean, I'm happy for you that it's a way to keep you connected, and I'm grateful that I get to be a part of it. So,
yeah, yeah, me too. But
yeah.
yeah, my training is I've also noticed some like reverberations from the retreat where I don't know, like have you ever had that experience of just kind of like, well, I guess kind of like you feel a dream like later on in the like you've woken up, you've started your day and you sense a dream that you had the night before but you can't actually place any of the images or what happened. Have you ever had that experience where it's kind of like I have this feeling of what I had in the dream?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
it's really trippy and kind of cool. But I've been feeling that way where it's like I'm having a similar kind of feeling of the retreat that shows up throughout my day. And that's really nice because it's like, okay, oh, it's this little, connection that I'm maintaining.
What would
Um,
you say if you were going to try to describe it? What would it feel? How would you describe it?
it's like this kind of mm, like kind of just a little bit of opening in my like chest area, like this kind of just slight spaciousness, not like vast spaciousness, but just kind of, oh, I'm, you know, there's more than just me. I'm connecting. I feel more connected. But that totally doesn't kind of encapsulate the experience, right? It's very hard to
Yeah.
put into words. But yeah, it's pleasant and yeah, just I think it keeps me in touch with the training and our teacher. So yeah, it's kind of
Well,
cool.
yeah, well, I certainly some the lingering effect of the retreat. I wonder how long do you think like the echoes will continue, like do you think it like it'll be forever? Because
Yeah,
I still get echoes from like first retreat, second retreat, right? They're
yeah,
sometimes a little faint, but it's still there.
for sure. Well, I'm sure there's like, yeah, definite echoes that will continue on. How cool to imagine, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ah, well, I'm glad. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
me too.
We just need more of them. Now, Lama did say that he aspires to having more and longer retreats. So
Mhm.
hopefully we'll get to make good use of that and have sort of louder, longer echo reverberations.
Yeah, excellent. Auspicious. We'll make it
Yes,
happen.
let's make it happen.
Yeah. Well, great. Hey, let's do some mind training now. Yeah, rather than waiting
All
for
right, all right, let's
retreat.
not wait for it. Now, just a little note that I'm not quite sure, even though we're supposed to be live streaming, I'm not entirely sure that we are.
Okay.
Just a
Okay.
heads up.
Yeah, see, it says custom live streaming service.
Yeah, we don't know what that means.
Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
We're figuring it out.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see here. We'll get the random Lojong slogan generator up and running. Here we go. Crank the engine, push the orange button.
All right. Aha. 55. Find freedom through investigation and examination. I think this one is new for us.
I think so
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what Se Chilbu Choki Gyaltsen, who lived between 1121 and 89, says in his commentary on the 7-point mind training. First, investigate which affliction is most dominant in your mind and earnestly apply its specific antidote, striving hard to subdue the affliction. Then analyzing the way diluted mental projections arise in relation to the objects that act as their bases. By applying the antidotes, you reduce the force of the afflictions or prevent their arising. By repeatedly thinking, from here on, I will never allow my mind stream to be tainted by these afflictions, you cultivate familiarity with the protective armor for the future. Thus, with these twin methods for applying antidotes to past and future afflictions, strive diligently to eliminate the afflictions.
Oof. Say Chilbu Choki Gelson. I think maybe the language is a little bit difficult for my mind to wrap its head around there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think in a way, like the slogan itself, "Find freedom through
mhm.
investigation and examination," sort of rings like it finds its mark somehow in me. But the commentary on it is a little bit. I'm not quite sure I'm getting it. Do you get it?
Yeah, I mean I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is kind of there's a lot to unpack. Um
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
yeah. I think, it's, saying, okay, like pick an affliction that is common, right, to you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that kind of relation to the objects that act as their bases. That's kind of where I'm like, I would have to look at that longer,
Is
think.
that, yeah, is that sort of, in a way, it makes me think of like how um sort of like, like we were talking about the heaps and the glaciers, right? How
Mhm.
we,
Yeah,
so we have our, like, our sense perceptions, which sort of whatever, let's say that it's desire, right? Like this sort of, like this attachment, right? Then it's always in relation to something, right?
right.
I assume maybe that's kind of how it is, like that. We're sort of like, in those cases, we're maybe like overemphasizing the positive qualities of
Right.
an object, right? And that our own tendency is to do that and to blow it out of proportion. It creates this desire, and then by looking at it that way, we can gain greater perspective, and that would reduce the affliction. Is that? Do you think
That
maybe?
makes sense. Yeah. So the yes, I see what you're saying. Um, so analyzing the object that we have our attention on, our kind of misguided attention on and around.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like this is actually directly related to the four opponent powers.
yeah, no, I see that at the end. Yeah, that the twin methods of applying antidotes for past and future afflictions. And yeah, kind of setting down, trying to, like, I from here on I will never allow my mind stream to be tainted by these afflictions. So making that real aspiration. What's the word used for that, the last kind of part? Resolve. I think Lama
Resolve.
uses the word resolve. So
Yeah.
that resolve, like, okay, I'm really going to make an effort. um and he says for a lifetime. I'm probably going to say like for the next 5 minutes or
Yeah.
12 hours or a day, right?
Or
Um,
even a few seconds.
right, or even a few seconds. So kind, so compassionate, right? Great. Yeah, we have to just take some time, investigate, take things apart. Is this object as desirable or horrific as I'm thinking it is?
I do think that this is directly related to what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. Hey, this is one of those.
Agmo Drupa Dorje Gelpo. Huh.
Nice.
All right. Yeah. Nice
I dig
image.
it.
Yeah, me too. All righty.
All right, Lojong.
Thank you, Dirk, for putting that
Yes.
together for us.
Yes. All right.
How are
Well,
you feeling
jump
about
in.
how are you feeling about the politics of today, Jack?
I'm definitely on edge. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm very much on edge. I work with a lot of people in their 70s and 80s, and I've heard so many people say a very similar thing about how they've never seen anything like this in their lives living in the United States. And that's frightening, right? This
Yeah.
real, um, very swift descent into authoritarianism that's happening. And it is happening. It's that's I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Um, so yeah, I definitely feel on edge. Everyone I work with feels on edge. Um, and I'm curious, like as we kind of talk about ways to work with this kind of anxiety, how to kind of balance validation of that experience and the reality of the kind of the direness of where we're at, while also not letting us fall into that kind of spectrum that we mentioned earlier about apathy and rage. Um,
Right. Well, that's the balancing act, right? Is
that's
to,
the
on the one
balancing.
hand, to see reality as it is, right? And at the same time to try to uncover and deal with the afflictive emotions that arise from our own skewed, distorted perceptions of it.
Yeah,
So that's the work.
that's the work. Yeah. Well, I think this is one of those moments where we get a very sharp and clear image of what samsara is, right?
Correct. Yes.
And so, our whole lives are this, juggling afflictions that we just talked about, right? And yet this is kind of like this moment where everyone's feeling like, what the hell is going on here? Um,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like a little bit of a light bulb moment, I think, where it's like, yeah, this is suffering. This is what happens when yeah, when we aren't um taking care of our minds, right?
For
Yeah.
sure it is samsara. One aspect of it that I can't help but think about is there, of course, we can talk about, whatever, all kinds of things related to impermanence here and, the kleshas and whatnot. But
Hmm.
one aspect of it that I've been sort of thinking about a lot is how we sort of believe in the solidity of things, right? And one aspect of that is like the United States being a world superpower, right? The first and
Right.
only, world superpower. And the extreme privilege that Americans have lived in for a long time now, right? And how the state of the world, actually, we've always been aware that things are not like this, had not always been that way for everybody, that the bounty and the freedoms and the whatever the lifestyles that this country afforded people, we always knew that it wasn't like that everywhere. In fact, there are genocides and all kinds of things happening all the time around the world, and it wasn't happening in the United States. And there was some sense of like, at least from my perspective, this feeling of like it's always gonna, like, of course it's gonna be like this. Yeah, we'll have hard times and better times or whatever, but always America is gonna be this place that is, has this extreme power and is never like won't succumb to the kind of troubles that plague the rest of the world. And now there's this, at least I get this feeling of like, uh-oh, we're about we're about to experience what it's like or what it has been like for many people, in this modern age that haven't had the privilege of being Americans. There's that sort of this feeling of like, oh, I thought there was something solid there. I thought, America, the idea of America at least was a solid concept. And no matter what I thought about capitalism and democracy and power structures and all of that, that there was some kind of stability, and this rapid change, this
Right.
incredibly fast change is just throwing all kinds of water on that concept.
Right, right, for sure. Yeah, and similarly, like I've always had a critique of our American systems and the two-party system, capitalism, and our institutions that are very clunky and bureaucratic and problematic. Um, but yeah, I just figured that's just the way it is here.
The
And it,
pendulum swings,
right,
yeah, but
right,
there's a real self country here, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, and so I just thought it was going to be like this. But and yeah, and I think, I also have to think about how there's people who are living in this country who have been experiencing these conditions for a long time, right?
Right.
Like chaos in their communities and being over policed and at threat of violence all the time.
Right?
And so it definitely is like a wake up call, I think, for a lot of people that it's like, yeah, it can happen to you. It's
Right.
been
Right.
happening to your neighbors, right? And so yeah, but it's just, yeah, it's shocking, right?
It is shocking.
And the particular ways that I think uh cruelty is really surfacing, I think, is one thing
Well,
that
and without going too far down this path, I mean, the state only exists because of its monopoly on violence, and therefore,
exactly.
if there's going to be any kind of a major shift in terms of governance, then it's almost guaranteed, it almost kind of has to be through the use of violence. Like that's what the power of the state is,
Right.
right? So I mean I don't know that there's another way.
I know. Yeah, I know that's something that's been, on my mind, I think, for a long time since I came to Buddhism, is that I'm not necessarily a pacifist.
No.
I believe in nonviolence as much as possible. But I do think that you're right. Like the state does have a monopoly on violence. And the state that we have right now is extremely dangerous to the entire world,
Correct.
and to our planet. And so something does need to change. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I imagine there are going to be revolts. It is going to
Yeah.
get messy, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting time.
Right. And so I think that the question that we have before us then is twofold. One, how do we how do we take care of ourselves,
Yeah,
right? Like, how do we make sure that ourselves and our bodies, our minds, our communities are as good as they can be?
yeah,
And then, separately maybe not separately, but in addition to that, what can we do?
yes.
We're not like, there's this sort of notion of the, like, this pacifist Buddhist who is neutral and doesn't do anything. But the Buddha, the historical Buddha, was not neutral,
Mm,
right? Like in his time, he was a little bit of a radical, right? He was
sure.
subversive in the sense of, not upholding the caste system of the day, and he ordained women, right? So,
Yeah.
those things those were radical for his day.
Right. And they were direct, yeah, right, directly in the face of power.
Correct.
Which,
Right.
yeah, some people would say, well, that was a non-violent way to be non-pacifist, right?
Correct. Right.
It's an interesting kind of, yeah, what to tease out, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, you're right. Like flying in the face of social norms, and really entrenched and powerful social norms, like the
Right.
caste system,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
um, incredible, to involve people who are of the lower caste.
And interestingly enough, this is from the sutras, but there are multiple places where he talks about political power or governance, right, in the worldly sense. And he in one of the sutras called the sutra about the wheel turning monarch. Have you heard of
Mm,
this one?
yeah, yeah,
The Chakravartin.
yeah.
And one of the things that the reason I bring this up is that regardless of your political affiliation and where you might fall on the political spectrum, if you're an American, if you think about what the Buddha himself said when he was talking about a a good monarch, right? The best kind. It's one who provides protection and security for the people and the animals. And I
Mm,
would extend that probably to the environment at large, and to not let injustice prevail, and to provide money to the penniless people within the realm.
mm,
And so, if you're a Buddhist, you could sort of look at that and be like, are the people that I'm supporting, or the political parties that I'm supporting, or the movements that I'm supporting, are they aligned with these principles, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And be honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's it's inspiring, right?
Right.
To imagine that that could be
So,
possible.
but he wasn't say there was no indication that he was like, "Oh, we are no part of this world,"
Right, right.
He wasn't saying like, "Oh, be the Switzerland, sort of neutral," No, no. Like, we
Yeah.
have to be engaged.
We have to be engaged. Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is to carry on the Dharma, right?
Correct. Correct.
Because we can't teach the Dharma if we don't have a world, or even, pull it back a little bit from climate collapse, but like, you know, if we don't have educational systems that teach people, you know, how to read, or, you know, arts and humanities, like that's how I got into Buddhism, was that I was reading texts in high school that led me down a path to kind of be like, ooh, the beat poets, that's interesting. I like the
Yeah,
writing. Like I'm going to
that's
read,
right.
you know, some Buddhism, right? And so yeah, though, like if we don't have those things, right, we you know, Buddhism might not reach some people. And there's all other kinds of ways that that yeah, we need to fight back against these systems so that we can maintain teaching the Dharma, and
Right.
spreading the Dharma, not just, you know,
Right.
maintaining, but spreading it. We want it to grow
But
here.
what's interesting is that in order to do all of those things that you just mentioned, the very best way to facilitate that is by practicing the Dharma, right?
Totally.
So like sort of like the heart of Buddhist politics or whatever you want to call it is this inner transformation. That's what
Got you.
all this training is all about, right? Purifying ourselves, you know, with through meditation and like investigating our afflictions, like we were just talking about, right?
Mhm.
Applying the right antidotes and therefore living, you know, virtuously. And
Yeah.
by doing that, that's the best way for us to affect change in, you know, both at a local level and you know, expand it outward. I was talking to a friend earlier today about how, you know, so many people have this feeling of like the big picture is wrong and I need to do something big for this big picture, right? But that's not the way personal power works. It's more
Right.
like a pebble in water, right? Where it starts, you know, with the little, you know, whatever, maybe it's a big splash, but then it ripples outward,
Mhm.
right? And so we have to start with what is right here in front of us, our body, our speech, our mind. And
Right.
by working on that, then those ripples can carry on and go outward and reverberate, just like we were talking about with this with the retreat.
Right. Yeah, and I think you know, extending just a little farther than, you know, the personal self too, is like these smaller actions that we can do within our direct community.
Of course.
Right? Because
Yeah.
like I also get really overwhelmed by the, you know, just how big everything feels. Like it's just so overwhelming. These systems are, you know, going to be collapsing, right? It's like
Yeah.
the feeling, right? And probability, but like, um how can I bring it to my local community? Because if my worst case scenario fears come true, who's actually going to be there, right, to support one another? Is those, you know, directly around me.
Right.
So taking care of each other, getting to know my neighbors, right, like that's something I'm doing. And so it's kind of like this crisis moment is encouraging me to actually engage more
Right.
with my
Right.
community.
And furthermore, one of the things that I've been noticing in the last, you know, let's just say few days, maybe
Mm.
last week or so, is how people who I believe are were and probably still are sort of on the wrong side, if you
Mhm.
will, how they're sort of having an oh shit moment too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, change is coming. I didn't expect it to look like this, kind of,
Yeah.
right? And there's more of that sort of a sense that like we're all together, we're all interconnected, we're all interdependent. And so whatever is happening here, what good or bad, is going to affect all of us. And so
Mhm.
to not allow this divisiveness to grow within us, I think that's one of the key things. Our community is filled with people that are with diverse ideas and attitudes and perspectives, right? And it isn't so binary. It's not so left, right, Republican, Democrat, right? And just like we learned through all these teachings, like all of us, you know, we have this shared humanity in which we want to avoid suffering and we want happiness. We're just sort of misguided about how to achieve that, right? We have some of these cliches, right, that prevent us from doing things skillfully. And if we can connect with people, even those that like if we can really see the person, not just their actions, right? And we can see this shared humanity, I think that we'll be doing a great service. And you know, and that's the kind of change that we want to see in this world because it's not going to
Right.
come about through greater divisiveness.
Yeah, I think that's been a really key thing for me, is like uh how can I actually um show people like the type of world that I want to live in, that I'm
Right.
imagining, that, you know, that what you were just kind of describing, that what was the chakra baba or chakra,
The
yeah,
Chakravartin.
the Chakravartin. So that kind of world, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to show it by being like, oh gosh, I can be really condescending, right? And like I'm right and you're fucking wrong.
Yeah.
And like like, you know, it's just like a really superiority, like superior place.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
I don't want to do that, right? Like that is
Correct.
not going to get the message across.
Right.
It
Right.
never does.
No, no, exactly that. There was this great article by a former Theravadan monk. His name is David Sudar. And I don't remember the title of the article, but if you were to Google his name, I'm sure this would come up. And he made this point that I thought was fantastic. He said that inspiring change comes more from living like a Buddha than talking like a Buddha.
Uh, yeah, right, right,
And that
yeah,
echoes something that Lama had told me in the past too, right? The best way to teach the Dharma is to practice the Dharma.
right, right. Yeah, and then the people really then trust what you're going to say, right? If you're living the values that you say you
Right.
appreciate, that you care about, then you're actually trustworthy. And they might, yeah, be a little bit more apt to hear what you're saying.
Right.
Um,
Right. And to remember,
absolutely.
have you ever, that, what was that parable? Of like people in a, they were all, like, this is like a famous Buddhist parable, but it's like people in a dark room. I don't know, they're like touching an elephant or
With the
something.
elephant, yeah.
Right. And they're all like, each one of them has their own experience because they're touching a different part of the elephant. They're having a different experience. And they all like think it's, whatever the object is, they think it's what they think it is because they had this experience of it. But
Yeah,
actually, none of them's right. Right. Like, and it's important not like we have these like limited perspectives, right? They were all arguing with each other about their perspectives, but none of them were wrong about their experience. They were just wrong about the conclusions that they jumped to.
yeah, for sure. Yes. Yeah, and then my skeptic brain comes in and is like, but what about the people who are acting in bad faith? Like the people who are like lying, just straight up lying, you know, with kind of menacing purpose, right?
Yeah.
And then I have to think, okay, at the same time, the reason why they're doing that is what they have found to work for them to get what they want, for the ultimate purpose of what happiness, right? They
Oh
think
my
that
God.
that's going to
Yeah,
get them, you know,
correct.
what they want, like whether that's money or power or fame,
Yep.
you know, they think that that's going to make them happy. And so they're willing to act in bad faith, to lie, to take advantage of. Um, I don't like it. I don't have to like it,
No.
but I
No.
can reason, you know, I can start to understand.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the key teachings is to develop compassion for everybody, including those people that we view as acting in bad faith. There's an absolutely phenomenal, wonderful talk on the subject of political anxiety by
Mm,
Venerable Thupten Chodron.
mm,
Fantastic. And one of the things like she really focused on was how we see these, like she was just like, pick any of these political people that you have such disdain for. It doesn't matter, right? Like just pick any one of them. And then she was talking about like these different ways to get better perspective on them because she was like, look, you've solidified them into like this one dimensional thing, right? Whatever it is. And she's like, what about all the time that they're not engaged in politics, where they're not on screen, where they're just hanging out with their family or with their dog or whatever? What about their anxieties, their doubts, their fears, their physical pains, and all of that? And then she went a step further, and I thought this was really cool. She was like, just to offer just a balance. This is just a tool to sort of moderate our own perception. She was like, all right, now think of a baby. Think of them. At one point, they were a baby, an
mm-hmm.
innocent little baby,
Yeah,
right? You didn't have any bad feelings towards them. They were innocent. It was all good, right? And
yeah,
then you can see, well, how did it go from being a baby to being a raging, narcissist who's
yeah,
destroying the world? How did that happen? Well, when you look at it, you're like, it's the same way that you were formed. It's the same way I was formed. We were
Yeah,
conditioned.
we were conditioned.
It's actually a very, I mean, I hate to say this. I want to slap myself for saying it. It's kind of innocent, right? Like we want to say assign this personal blame, and yeah, it's true. Like they are idiots. They are like, nobody's saying that what they're doing isn't a bad stuff, right? And that they shouldn't be stopped and yada yada yada. But that, for our own sake, that we don't want to be delusional ourselves. We can see the delusion that is causing harm on their end. We don't want to like perpetuate that on our end. And so just seeing like, yeah, these are conditioned beings in samsara. What the hell did you expect?
Yeah, right, right. Well, and that seems like one good way to take care of oneself, right? Is like kind of trying to remind ourselves of those teachings, and notice like how it shifts.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's not gonna necessarily change, it's not gonna change their behaviors, right?
No,
It's they're
that's
gonna
not the
keep doing
point.
what they're doing, but that's not the point, right? We don't want to be simmering in that. It doesn't do anything, and it just creates tension in our lives.
That's right.
I'm curious too, like maybe we could talk a little bit about some ways that we can take care of ourselves, in addition to kind of reminding ourselves of these teachings.
I think all the ways that we can help ourselves feel better is to avoid all those secondary arrows, right? The
Mm,
truth of the matter is that whatever the bad changes that have arrived or are coming, those are those first arrows. And then everything else that we do that increases and perpetuates suffering are the secondary arrows. Like, so sitting there and feeding on this endless nauseating stream of so-called news and opinions associated with it and propaganda and whatnot. That's not helping us, man. We've talked about that before.
the doom scroll, not helping.
Not helping at all. No, no, and one point that I think is really there was this wonderful talk by from the Zen community of Oregon, a teacher named Patrick Boncho, and he himself used to be a political strategist of some sort. And he was talking about his the 3 points that he made that I just thought were so wonderful. He said, first of all, recognize that all of your anxiety is coming from a place of caring, like deep caring about
Mm,
yourself and about people, right? That's why this is you're feeling this. And this anxiety is natural because it comes about from not knowing what's going to happen. That's normal, right? Uncertainty creates anxiety. So then we go looking for certainty. And what do? We go and consume a bunch of news, right? In order to alleviate our uncertainty, to reduce our anxiety. And when we get inundated with all of this information, without, and this was the critical point, we get all this information without the ability to act on it.
yeah.
And then we feel even more powerless. And the fact of the matter is, by doing this, by engaging in that cycle, we are literally stripping our power. We are
Mm,
removing our power to act. It's the exact opposite of what we need to be doing. If we're going to be engaged, right? If we're going to be political in a way that matters, if we're going to, really, really engage with our communities and try to make the world a better place, that's not the way to do it.
yeah, right, right. Because yeah, festering in that kind of suffering does nothing. Yeah.
No, it just makes you mad, sad.
And
Oh,
I think it too, it like really fuels this kind of despair feeling that things will never change. And that like I kind of get like permanent around it, where I'm just
yeah,
like, people are bad and this is always gonna happen. We're just warmongering, greedy, like assholes. Um, and fact of the matter is, impermanence is a real thing. And so things can actually change for the better. We see them changing rapidly right now in ways that we
right,
don't like. Why is it that it can't change in ways that we do like?
precisely.
That's absolutely possible. And,
Yeah,
we are making the future right now. Like, we are making the future with our
yeah,
actions and our minds right now. And so if we can put our energy towards projects, towards connections, and our own personal liberation, that will help affect and create the world that we want.
yeah.
We're
And
doing
I
it.
think that Yeah, I think that that part that you said, the connection part, is important right now because we're so, one of the biggest problems and one of the ways that this massive change came about was because people are so isolated and they're not
Yes.
they're disconnect they're not we're not disconnected in one way because we have the internet, so we're like closely connected to the whole world in one way, but interpersonally, we're very isolated and very disconnected. And the
Yeah.
best thing we can do is to connect with real, honest to God, flesh and bone human beings. And it doesn't matter, especially, it's okay. You don't have to seek out people that are like the opposite of you or anything, but like
Yeah.
just don't, no barriers. Like connect with everybody, the best of
Yeah.
your ability.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been, every once in a while, like just a stranger at the grocery store, like
Yeah,
the checkout person today. We just kind of exchanged a few words about like, how are you doing? Like how are things? I know it's a stressful time right now. And just sharing, like take care of yourself, right? And I
right.
think that is a really nice practice to do.
Yeah, and kind of like Mr. Rogers said, like look for the helpers.
Look for the helpers. Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, Daniel, I feel like I feel better, right? I started the before the show, I was actually having a lot of political anxiety because I was doing some doom scrolling, have to admit,
Yeah.
in preparation for the show.
Of course. Thank you for your
Of course, right?
sacrifice. Yeah.
Um, but this has been really helpful, and yeah, I appreciate your friendship, and everyone listening. I really appreciate you, and really, really take care of yourselves. And we're here for you.
Amen. And I want to just put it out there that even though I tend to veer off towards apathy, the subject matter is something that really has, made me think like, no, what are the ways in which I can be engaged and active, doing things to make things better, right? Just
Yeah,
sitting here doom scrolling, as you said, and wallowing in it, or, feeling bad about the whole thing isn't changing anything, right?
yeah,
It's just more of the same crap, right? But I think like the very things that we've been talking about, there are ways that I can help. There are ways that I can affect political change. It may not be at the ballot box. It may not be by, yelling at the TV or whatever people do nowadays, right? It may not be like that, but there are ways that we can make a change in this world. We're doing it. Like you said, we're creating our future right now. We're all participating in this big old tapestry.
yeah,
What do we
yeah,
want it to look like?
right.
Huh?
Nothing is inevitable.
No,
That's a
no.
very helpful mantra for me. Nothing is
That's right.
inevitable. Keep
That's
going. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Jack.
you, Daniel. All right. Omahan. I'll see you
Well,
next week.
yeah, hopefully the streaming will be working.
Yeah, yeah, good. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.